The statistics on anxiety, depression, and stress are becoming more disturbing. According to a recent Gallup poll, about 1/3 of the world's population are feeling stressed and worried. In the U.S., that statistic climbs to about half of the population. Our instant access to world news combined with the pace of our lives and all the vacation time we leave on the table each year, it's all coming to a detrimental head. We don't pretend to have all the answers to this global issue, but we want to do our part to speak into the situation. So, over the course of these next few episodes, we'll be sharing with you some dynamics that we feel are critical to this discussion. We're so glad you've joined us today on the Unhurried Living podcast. Recently, we read a study on stress statistics published by the American Psychological Association back in 2014. The numbers from even 5 years ago are sobering. 77% of people regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress. 73% regularly experience psychological symptoms caused by stress. 48% feel their stress has increased over the past 5 years. And another 48% reported lying awake at night due to stress.
And just this year, the New York Times reported on the Gallup 2019 Global Emotions Report. And of 150,000 people surveyed from around the world, America came up among the most stressed people in the world. Now, when asked if they had experienced stress during a lot of the previous day, 55% of Americans responded yes. That's compared to 35% globally. And when they were asked if they had experienced a lot of worry on the previous day, about 45% of Americans responded yes, compared to 39% globally.
In an ABC News online article, we find an alarming study about college students in America. The lead author on the study was Dr. Cindy Liu, a psychologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Here are her findings. Liu conducted the study by surveying over 67,000 college students from over 100 college campuses about their stress, anxiety, and depression. They were also asked directly if they had suicidal thoughts or made attempt to harm themselves. 1 in 5 students said they had thought of suicide, while about 1 in 10 actually attempted it. Each of those statistics is more than double the national average for adults. Now, we just gave you a lot of statistics. You can find all the links to the articles we just referenced on our website.
Now, of course, there are many causes that factor into these statistics, and we could have numerous discussions on this topic. Let's just say it's enough that stress, anxiety, and depression are on the rise and are affecting us at serious rates. So we here at Unhurried Living care deeply about these trends. And that's exactly why the word unhurried is so important to us. It's not about doing less or moving slower. It's really about the inner pace of our lives, that place where stress wants to move in and take root. We are sharing the good news that you don't have to be a slave to anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. You have a choice, and there is actually a way to live an unhurried life while maintaining and thriving in your relationships and your work.
And we aren't the only ones talking about this. From the Huffington Post to Forbes magazine to Psychology Today, you can find articles that discuss how meditation, rest, silence, and solitude can all play an important role in our mental, emotional, relational, and workplace health. Take a few minutes later and search any of those websites for the words silence, rest, or meditation. Read for yourself what the research is telling us. Again, the statistics that we shared earlier are alarming, and many people are suffering daily because of their stress levels. We don't presume to have the final answers for how to solve these distressing trends. We do, however, want to do our part to bring this to light and to offer insights and tools to help people find relief from the pace and the anxiety of their lives. In Unhurried Living podcast episodes 95, 97, 99, and 100, we will share with you some dynamics that we've never taught anywhere before. So now is the time to invite your friends and colleagues to listen in to this podcast. bring some others along with you because we're going to go to new levels here.
Now, if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you know that we end each episode with 6 words: rest deeper, live fuller, lead better. And we've shared a bit about those vital values. But where we're heading next is to share with you the dynamics that occur when we pair those values. For example, resting deeper and living fuller leads us to intentional soul care. Living fuller and leading better unite into dynamic, strategic personal influence. And resting deeper and leading better help us to develop our rooted, God-given identity. Now, we'll look in depth at each of these dynamics in the episodes Jem mentioned, number 95, 97, and 99. And then when we reach our anniversary episode, number 100, it will culminate in an overview of our values, our dynamics, and our refreshed paradigm. We thought it'd be a great way to celebrate our 100th episode. So be sure to subscribe and to watch for these upcoming episodes.
Today, we're going to talk about intentional soul care, the dynamic that emerges as we explore the interaction between resting deeper and living fuller. Now, if you Google the term soul care, you might find quite a few definitions, but we like Dallas Willard's definition, and here's how he defined the soul. The soul encompasses and organizes the whole person, interrelating all the other dimensions of the self so that they form one person functioning in a flow of life. And in his book, Finding Quiet, J.P. Moreland described the soul this way. He says, the soul is fully present at each point of the body. In this way, the soul is to the body as God is to space, which is to say entirely present at each point. This is part of what it means to say that the soul animates, makes alive, makes sentient the body.
So, what Dallas is saying and what JP are saying is that the soul is that organizing and animating reality of the entirety of who we are. The soul isn't some thing in the very middle around which everything else revolves. It's not like an organ or something. It is the animating reality of everything that we are. It's the whole. And so when you hear us talk about soul care, or for that matter, anybody talking about soul care, we're talking about more than bubble baths and a good nap. It's not a spa day for the soul. Those are great, and moments of refreshment like that is good for us. But there are important realities to remember that soul care is about tending to that part of you that actually enlivens your entire being. Now, doesn't that end up making soul care seem like something that should be on the top of your to-do list? In the multiple advertisements that we see every day streaming across our many devices, we're being asked, what is the good life? The cultural assumption is that an abundant life is a consumer reality. So the more I have, the more I am. The more I do, the more I am. The kingdom of God assumption is that an abundant life is a soul reality and a relational reality. We are not just consumers. Your soul is inextricably tied to how you function within all the realms of your life: relational, physical, emotional. We aren't talking about any kind of navel gazing when we speak of soul care. We aren't talking about being self-focused in a selfish way. What we're talking about is the very center and essence of your existence. Let's remember that working to improve any part of your life means working on your spiritual life, because you are one unified being. Eugene Peterson would encourage us not to talk about our spiritual life, but simply our life. Every aspect of life is intertwined and connected. So if I work on my physical body, my mind and my will are lifting metaphorical weights as well. If I work on my emotions, my heart and body can find healing. My entire being benefits from the work I do in one area, because all areas are interconnected. All of me, the whole of me. You can't separate out the parts of me any more than you can separate out the ingredients in bread after it's baked.
Now, with all that said, you might think soul care is weighted toward the inner life, but it's not just about the inner life. It is about me as a whole person. It's important that we're all on the same page about this before moving forward. So we want you to get a renewed vision of what soul care means for our lives right here and right now. Intentional soul care is not an emergency measure. It is an intentional and ongoing life with and in God. We are refilling and re-energizing the part of us that animates the whole. Soul care is best done in an ongoing way. It's more like an engine than a spare tire. An engine needs to be maintained to keep in good running order, regular oil changes, tune-ups, checking the fluids, and more. And it's more like a daily meal than emergency rations. We make it a priority to eat several times throughout the day to keep our strength up. And just like drinking enough water, it's best not to let yourself get to the point of feeling the effects of dehydration. How long can you go without food? How long can you go without water? How long can you go without air? How long can you go without being mindful of God's presence? Now, rhetorical as these questions are, it's good to check in to be sure we are not living on emergency rations in any area of our lives. As we said earlier, every week you hear us say these 6 words at the end of our podcast: rest deeper, live fuller, lead better. Now, the dynamic of intentional soul care is actually the relationship of rest deeper to live fuller. Now, within each of these values lies a relational reality. At our best, we are awake to the relational nature of every encounter. Not just us and God, but others as well. And not just us and others, but God as well.
So now, in terms of intentional soul care, when you rest deeper, you're declaring that you're not a slave. You're not a slave to time or to other people's expectations. You have a sense of caring for yourself in the most holy and healthy sense of that term. You're also saying that what God thinks of you is the most important factor in your life. It's in the practice of soul care that we make space to remember we're loved by God. In Him we live and move and have our being. And from this centered, loved place, we move out into our lives. So soul care is making space for these realities to be deepened within your life. And it can occur alone or with others. This often depends on your temperament or your preferences. The key is to do things that are filling for you, that inspire you, that give you rest, and that rejuvenate you. What works for you may not work for others, and vice versa. We must each learn what feels like soul care to us.
Now, with that said, there is one kind of soul care that works for everyone, and we recommend this to you no matter your personality or where you land on the introvert-extrovert scale. The most intensive soul care often occurs in times of solitude, silence, and stillness. When you're practicing solitude, it's so you can remember that you're not what others say about you and that God calls you His beloved child. If you're practicing silence, it's to remember that your identity is not tied to your possessions and that you are safe and secure in God's presence. If you're practicing stillness, it's so you can remember that you are not what you do and that God is in control, which means you can learn to let go. Soul care practices train us to be more mindful of the reality of God with us. And this can occur in so many ways. Soul care can be a walk in the woods, tending a garden, reading a good book, or taking a nap. It can also be reading scripture, singing a worship song, and praying. The question is this: what fills you? What restores you? What brings you rest? And how can you rest in the reality of God with you as you do it? In our book, What Does Your Soul Love?, we include an appendix with ideas for creative spiritual practices. Any one of these could be a soul care time for you. In its connection to resting deeper, living fuller is not actually something that you strive for. It ends up being a fruit rather than a pursuit. Think about it this way. As you practice intentional soul care through activities that refresh and refill you, can you see that your internal revving might just reduce a notch or two? And then how would that affect your quality of life? What if peace showed up more often as a natural outcome of knowing deeply that you are loved?
So living fuller is an organic outcome of resting deeper. Listen to this testimony from Amy, who is a member of our Unhurried Collective. Hear what she has to say about the dynamic between resting deeper and living fuller. This is what she says. Recently, I was starting to emerge from a very dark period of my life when God seemed very far away. I was angry. I was bitter about the losses I'd experienced and resistant to relationships in general. Enrolling in an Unhurried Collective seemed like a definite risk on my part, putting myself and my baggage out there with people I didn't know. But God met me in the dark time, in my deepest hurt, and He brought people into my life that would help me heal and grow. Through an Unhurried Collective, I'm learning what it means to slow down, to stop, linger, observe, and wonder, what replenishing myself and restoring my soul looks like, to rest and abide in God. This experience will bring lasting relationships and, from my perspective, peace. Now, doesn't it sound like she's experiencing the fruits of resting deeper that results in a more full life? But notice that resting deeper isn't just a walk through a daisy field. I mean, she's learning to spend time alone with God. She's learning to discern God's voice in her life in new ways. And she's bringing what she calls her baggage into the light with God and some new trusted friends. Soul care isn't always easy, but even the hard parts are worth it in the long run because you can become more free, more whole, and more healed. Soul care can look like walking with others in a safe community who will listen and not fix, who will hold and not judge. And you'd better believe this will lead to a more full life. You see, rest is a good thing in its own right. Rest isn't just an absence of work. Rest is a filling. It's a remembering, a refreshing, and a receiving. An abundant life is not just something out there I'm chasing, but the reality of my soul in relationship with a generous God. Resting deeper is not an ending, but a beginning, and it's soil in which a rich and full life grows. Rest deeper, live fuller. This is intentional soul care.
We love to quote Dallas Willard here on the podcast, and his words best wrap up today's discussion on intentional soul care. He writes, "The spiritual life is not a religious life. It is an ordinary life, lived in the presence of God. True spirituality is a life that is suited to your nature in God's world."
So that's what we're talking about when we say intentional soul care. So be sure to subscribe and be ready to listen to podcasts number 97, 99, and then 100 as we further unpack these unhurried living dynamics.
And here's something for you for sure that you don't want to miss. Now, we know that you want to make what we are talking about here actionable. So we've created an intentional soul care worksheet. It's a quick and simple one-page sheet to help you identify the activities that make you feel restored, empowered, and rested. It also includes instructions for getting your newfound ideas onto your calendar. So you can download this worksheet at unhurriedliving.com/podcast bonus. Now, here's the new thing. Once you've accessed your first download, you'll be granted access to an online resource page that lets you download all of our past worksheets, and it will update with new worksheets as they become available in upcoming podcasts. So again, go to unhurriedliving.com/podcast bonus.
So our blessings to you as you engage intentional soul care by resting deeper and living fuller. And as always, we love connecting with more and more friends like you who want to rest deeper, live fuller, and lead better.